Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of the Hero Podcast 64. My name is Ryan G from Aligned Data Strategy with my co host, the real Pete Kirkwood. Pete, what topic are we going to discuss?
Well, I think that we might as well carry on where we left off from last podcast. And we spoke about the call to adventure, the call to action, the call to being a hero, and starting the hero's journey. So let's talk about the journey of the hero's journey. Before we get to the end, before we get to the climax, what does the journey consist of? What does that look like? And what does that feel like? What's it like as an experience to go through? And how do you do it to the best of your ability? So realistically, one of the best ways to explore any subject is to talk about what we've seen in our own lives in the world and things like that lately. And my role in my hero's journey, in this current adventure that I'm on, I didn't really get it when I started. Right? I was like, okay, so there's something around the government needs to be changed and the financial system needs to be changed, and we need to work on these things. And we're just going to get started. We're just going to do it. And I just took leaps of faith and put myself in situations where it was like, it would have been very easy to justify, there's not enough evidence to investigate here. It's not worth my time. I have other priorities and commitments. But I thought there's something to this. And that had me in a very chaotic state of mind, because like I said, that call to action, man, it's uncomfortable. You're changing your rhythm, your state, right? You're going from whatever you're doing, stopping that, and then starting something new, which is the journey, which is the challenges and the trials. And you're going to encounter some of those quickly. And then you're going to have, like I said, our last podcast was like the round of brothers at the tavern having a beer after the first fight on the journey.
Right.
And you see how, like, even my character has come together. My haircut is more in line. My beard is more in line. My jewelry and attire is more in line with my purpose. Like, here I am as a financial, business, spiritual freedom fighter kind of a character. Like, it's really hard to put a name on it, but I know what I'm doing, and that's what I care about. And I don't need to explain these things. I just need to get them done. I got into a conversation with this about, someone saying, oh, the government's allocating money here and it's $3 million and it's right. And I said, yeah, look, that's all well and good. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm definitely saying it's not important to the bigger picture. And that is the kind of thing that'll happen on your journey. You've got a task that you're setting out to do, and you're going to need to come across the right contacts, the right tools, the right systems, weapons, whatever it is you're going to need for that final confrontation to really achieve the goal. On this journey, you're going to be acquiring things as you go along, and you're going to have plenty of side quests and things pop up that can take your time away and can really drag your journey out. You think about lots of video games we play, and the main storyline can be completed in a number of hours. But if you want to get into all the side quests and complete everything optional in the game, that same storyline of the hero starting and ending and saving the world, how much stuff he does on the way can make that into weeks or months. So we have these options available to us in our lives all the time, except it depends on what you're trying to achieve. I can see at this time how this is no video game, and this is for real stakes, for real human lives, and there's a lot on the line here. And these distractions and side quests, while they may be rewarding in terms of building relationships, acquiring certain reputation with different people or factions or groups, or even financial or material rewards that could be very useful, I've only got so much time. And all of a sudden you realize that how I'm literally living my life, am I talking about my life or the video game right now? Because it's actually not that different. But we're so conditioned to follow a pre-programmed set script of get a job, make money, survive. Fuck that. Like if you're listening to this podcast at this stage, I'm sure you're well aware that there's more to life than what you were sold growing up, right? We've got to that point in life where if you're looking and exploring these topics, I can't think of anyone brand new who's going to be here today. So
Mhm.
you're probably somewhere on the path of, well, how much are you going to commit to your hero's journey? Like, are you really going to do it? Or is that call to action going to pass you by? Are you really just going to get out there and start facing those trials, tribulations, and going through things, building your character, leveling up? You know, some of the challenges I've had to deal with are, man, I just couldn't have seen that coming. And the kind of person it's required to be to go through these experiences, like, this is new, but this was gifted, this was earned, and there was a time in my life when this wouldn't have been that important. But now that I know what this is and I get it, and I've not just got the treasure at the end of the dungeon, I've actually had to fight through the dungeon and understand why the treasure's at the end of the dungeon and what the treasure really does and the power and everything behind it. I had to fight hard for this knowledge and power. It
Mhm.
wasn't gifted to me. Because many things that are gifted to us, we don't take them seriously enough, which is why the hero's journey requires you to fight and struggle and go through the trials. You know, you often see this in our day-to-day life. It's like, man, does it have to be this hard? Well, yeah, otherwise we don't learn the lesson, learn the point. Do you find that experience reflects in your life, Ryan?
In a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of a meme. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Mm, mm.
And that's exactly what happens to the hero on his journey. As long as he doesn't die or gets severely injured, let's say, it's all peaches.
As long as he's not disabled, he is free to continue forth on his journey. And it's really quite crazy how many layers of reality and perception and things there are. Like what you take to be real,
Mhm.
unless it's like physical, right? Like this bottle cap, it's pretty real, right? It's pretty real. But for example, I haven't got anything free to hand. Well, this is sitting on top of a book. These
Mhm.
words on this page, they are only as real as the agreed upon meanings that humans have given them down the ages. That's pretty real,
Mhm.
but it's less real than this bottle cap in terms of the world. Now, what I can do with my less real words is way more than I can do with my real bottle cap. So that stone that you trip over outside of your front of your house every morning, that literal rock, well, yeah, it's real and it's a problem and it's probably quite easy to deal with. But the words and thinking thought patterns and beliefs and stuff that are floating around in your mind that have been installed by various authorities throughout your life in an attempt to get you to submit to their control, fuck, that's hard to deal with. That's some trial. That's some challenge. That's some tribulation. Now, if you are going to accept the call to arms, the call to being a hero, hero's call, and go on this quest, on this journey to free yourself, you're going to have to deal with all of this stuff. And many of our brothers are well aware of just how powerful of a weapon this is. And I think many of them have it and use it and aren't even aware, right? I know, I guarantee you Arash understands why there's the certain number of beads and what they represent and all the rest of it and things of it. But I guarantee that there are other men who use these beads without understanding what they do. And there's probably people who use these beads and hurt themselves and do things wrong in their life because they've been taught that. It's just another level of what are those layers of authority and control. You know, you can use the hammer to build yourself a house or build yourself a cage. Unless you finally understand the distinction, someone could quite easily convince you the cage is a house.
Mhm.
And we live in a world where our only reference is what we've been told and what we know, and it starts at an age where we are not conscious enough to make a decision about whether we're being fed the truth or not. So we internalize truth that as we grow older becomes, well, is it really that way? Like, is money really just a form of exchange, or is it a store of value, or is it, it's all these many things, because money is an information system to deploy human effort. Now, that gives you an actual much better understanding of what money is. Like, I've discussed this with a lot of my clients and people who bought my products and stuff like that. It's an information system. So not only what the money is, but how you use it and all that kind of stuff. Man, it's insane. And it literally does move people via lots of different methods and stuff. So it's insane when you think of it that way. But if your language is at the level of money is the root of all evil, well, you're really going to struggle with money. If I believe that this is cursed and toxic and having it around me will make my life worse, I'm going to struggle to deal with this bottle cap. It sounds ridiculous, but when you realize you think the same way about money, I don't think, man, this is so useful for capping a bottle, and I can keep all my water in my bottle without losing it. I can transport water from place to place. I can have life-giving liquid available to me wherever I am, in environments which are inhospitable to having liquid water around. It would just evaporate. It's contained within that bottle, all to the magic of that bottle cap. Now, we often don't credit the bottle cap with the amazingness that it is, because in a pre-industrialized civilization, a sealed container was actually a pretty impressive thing, especially one that could hold its seal the way that a bottle cap, you can put it through some abuse. But if my entire belief is that it's, plastic and it's ruining the earth and it's poisonous and it's toxic, and, what do you think about the world around you? How do you survive in it? Are you grateful for it? Do you see the benefits and the positivities and all of the things around you? Or do you see them as nightmares and demons and poisons and toxins just waiting to take you down? That way that you engage with the reality around you, this is part of the hero's journey. The hero who, you look at the attitude, you'll often see part of the hero's journey, the attitude will change. And that is one of the trials. You'll accept that you have to live with something the way it is. And then that'll bring you into a period of negative, of downwards vibration, of things going wrong, right? Just things not being good. And then you'll kind of be like, well, hang on a second. If we accept this, the bad guy wins. If we accept this, we never change. If we accept this, I'm going to lose the girl or the kingdom or the castle or the family or whatever's at stake, right? I'd better sort this shit out. And then the hero comes back. I was watching a cartoon that it was totally piss take, totally tongue in cheek. And the main character was like, it's hopeless, it's rah, rah, rah. And then there was the reminder of what he was really doing it for and what he was really capable of and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, well, yeah, hang on a second. And you could see him overcome that trial. And then he was like, are you guys with me? I think we can do this. And they're literally like, bro, you're the only one who quit. Like, it was all in your head. It was all your problem in your head that you quit with. And so often this happens to us that it's just our internal perspective of what's going on. Like, I'm getting deep into it here. You get where I'm going with it, Ryan?
Yeah, is your mind playing games with you?
Exactly.
I understand. Often, the trials we face aren't simply physical, but also mental. And it's in overcoming whatever obstacle on whatever plane of existence is where you find the hero that's growing. And it's never, let's say this, we make it so that it's not a straightforward path. We ourselves do that. And it's the same in business. Business can be made simpler, but it's never that simple.
Yeah, we buy into the lie. It's not that simple. When in reality, it
It
is.
is.
Maybe you just don't know it.
And haven't we learned recently that relationships could be simple? That we don't need complex scripts, that we don't need all that fancy tongue work, let's say. But what we do need is not to look at the symptoms, but the source of the problem. And even that might not be enough because we might not be looking at the correct cause.
Mm,
Do you see what I mean? It's a
I
difference
do.
between, let me imagine, you're stuck in a cave and bats are flying towards you. Now, Bruce Wayne decided to be traumatized and become Batman and attack every villain in the world, let's say, in order to
Hmm.
fight to implement his idea of justice. Now, this particular doctor, and I forgot his name, became, let's say, the guano doctor. He fell in love with bats. He decided to study bats and their effect on both humans and our economy.
Hmm.
And he decided not per se to be a hero, but to truly be a friend to bats also means that I need to be a friend to its poachers. And then he found out, oh, wait a minute, these poachers simply want to feed their family. That means, how do I create a economic benefit for the poachers so that by way of letting these bats live? And he found out, oh, this particular type of bat are good for the number one selling food within that economy. You know, that stinky
Hmm.
food, which names keep escaping me. And on the other hand, you have the bats that produce guano, which is a great fertilizer, which is a multi-billion-dollar business for that country. And then he created a storyline around it. And then at some point, he made sure the monks invested enough capital that these bats were protected by those specific poachers, and everybody wins.
Yep.
Just because he
That's a
decided.
great example.
And just last night, I managed to find this video. I'm gonna send it to you later. But it's such a inspirational story because this man never wanted to per se be a hero. He just loves bats to the point that he decided, I am not going to make an enemy out of this, what is perceived to be an enemy of these bats. Instead, he decided, let's look at what is their perceived reality and see
Mm,
how I can truly help. And this man has become a global hero for these bats. Thomas, welcome
that's
to the
really cool.
call. Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna look it up as you speak because I just realized how important this is.
Go because it's a great example of a hero's journey, right? You've got the call to action is that these bats are being hunted and abused, and he has to do something, and then he has to go through the process of researching all of the people involved in the circle of influence of these bats. Who influences them, who they influence, why, all the depth and detail behind it, and then rewrite a system that works for everyone involved in that system, connected to a storyline that makes it communicatable. So you can speak that system into existence and teach these people and explain to them how it works, that created a structure that eventually, through all those trials and tribulations and challenges, he creates a safe haven for those bats. What a cool hero's journey. That's really, really cool. And you drop the link there. Put the link when we post this up, Merlin Tuttle. When we post this up on YouTube, chuck the link in the description for people to go and check that out
Yep.
with a little note about what it's for, just so people can go and follow that kind of stuff up. It's often that little bit digging further that really, really really get something, you know? And I found that if I look at my own personal journey here and the trials and challenges, there's been some things it's like, man, I don't want to ask that question. I don't want to go there. Like that's like a little bit, oh, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to piss that person off. I don't want to say it in a way that causes a miscommunication or an offense. Like things like this, there's hesitations because the language around like the very word legal is now something where I'm like, whoa, you got to be careful you don't mean lawful. And most people are like, wait, what? What the fuck are you talking about? And I spent my entire life being in the category of, what do you mean legal versus lawful? Now I'm like, there's a difference. Which one is it? Hang on, let me say this right. And that's one word, you know. I got a whole list of words that I have to
Right.
redefine and understand.
And if I understand correctly, legal means according to law, lawful means doing the right thing, right?
Well, legal means under the structure of the government and the system where you're dealing with slavery, and lawful means for the human that is above that system. But what happens is we give up our power to work in the slave system as opposed to work in the human system, and we go under the wrong arm of the courts. But this is a whole, like, if actually you are part of my group, Paragrams of Success, there is some PDFs in there. There's a short one that's 7 pages that gives the basics. But if you want to get into the depth of it, there's one there that's 64 pages. There's my videos and content in there. Like anyone who's in my group is going to get the behind the scenes on what's going on.
Right.
The you know, because my haters watch these podcasts and stuff, so I'm only going to put a certain level of content in. If you want to reach out to me and discuss it, this is for people to do, right? We can always talk about it in a non-public forum. We can talk about it privately, where free individuals actually do everything in life. But yeah, see, all these language and words, like I know that what I'm saying, you're not interpreting exactly as I'm intending it because the definition in the language. And that goes for the people listening as well. So I've been through this circumstance where I'm having to negotiate what words I use and translating between multiple parties. So one person means this when they say this, but to the other person it means something completely different. But my job is to convey the exact communication. So then it becomes a translation. Like it's literally it's like I'm an ambassador between different countries that speak different languages, trying to form trade and peace deals. And that is actually a very accurate description of what I'm doing in my life right now. It's insane.
But isn't it funny because the hero is literally that what you're doing? The middleman always get paid the most because he makes the connections, he creates the network.
Yeah, I got to charge more. Like you're not wrong, you know. And the fascinating thing behind all this is that I spoke on this in my event and I taught on this, right? It's about the value and it's about the return on investment.
Of course.
Because I see where this is going long term. And sometimes I literally feel like the only person, right? Even when I'm negotiating between two sides and they're almost like, fuck man, why are we bothering? And I'm like, you've really got to trust. Like if you're at this negotiation table, there's a fucking good reason. And this is something people miss a lot in life. Things come along that they don't understand. And they're like, but I don't get it. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? It's an opportunity in front of you. You're not going to know how to run a business until you've run a business. You're not going to know how to start a business until you've started a business. You're not going to know how to walk until you've fallen on your face taking the first step.
True.
You don't understand those things before you do them.
How was it when you first started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Because I believe you've been doing this about 3 months or something.
Look, something like that. And that's an interesting thing because I had a whole lot of pressures and motivations and reasons and things built up that got me to make that decision to commit. and
Right.
start, because I'd wanted to start for a long time. Now, most of the decisions we make in our lives, we do like that. We need this huge evidence-based case of justification
Mm-hmm.
before we try that risk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem is that even though in our minds we think of it as an opportunity, we're categorizing it as trying a risk.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a belief that we can succeed. We have a hope. We don't have an understanding of the process or the outcome or the results. We have an idea. We have a expectation or a conception.
Mm-hmm.
And if I took a video that I produced yesterday, the public one or the private one,
Mm-hmm.
and I showed that to the me of if I went back to last year, it would definitely be enough that there wouldn't be a clue that I could be like, oh, I know where this is going and where it's coming from. I would just be like, what the fuck? If I went back 2 weeks, I'd be like, whoa, but I can see how this comes out of where I am right now. But if I went back 7 or 8 months, I wouldn't be able to. It'd
Because
be
only
impossible.
by looking back can you draw the line.
Correct. And if you had said to me at the turn of the year,
Mm-hmm.
what does this year hold for you? Everything I said would have been, well, actually, not everything I said would be wrong. Actually, it's interesting. Wow. I remember writing down my goals and things in January, right? Like, this is where I think I'll be in a few years. And this path is going to have to do one hell of a sick curve around. No, wait. No, I've already seen it. I thought that I'd be getting involved with land, and I thought that I'd be doing that through real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to be getting involved through land, but I'm going to be doing that because I'm going to be a landowner. Big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a landowner is actually a very rare thing in this world. Most
Mm-hmm.
people, most
Never own
banks and governments
Mm-hmm.
and things own land. Very few people actually do. They own the rights to possess it. It's very rarely theirs. So that course of action, now this is something that people really have to catch. I set the goals. The goals are at a level of understanding that couldn't even understand where I am now, but they are on track for where I'm going in the future. The fascinating thing is going to be the people who are listed amongst my goals that I don't have the control of, to see if they end up where I put them on my goals list. I mean, if they do or if they don't actually doesn't matter to me, because I've reached a stage in life where I understand that people are pretty interchangeable. That almost sounds harsh, but I'm including myself. Like, there's other people who could do what I do. I could be killed and someone could take my place. Could they do it as good as me? Well, probably not. But they could probably do things better than me that I'm not good at, because no people are the same. But that doesn't mean that someone else couldn't do my job.
Right.
And I understand that the people in my life, well, whether they're here or not, that doesn't mean someone else can't do the job. That doesn't mean that, for example, I want the badassest new jacket tailored for me, and I have this tailor in mind who I know I love their work and I've known them for years and they're a good mate of mine and all the rest of it. And we negotiate to get this beautiful jacket, this piece of art created. And then shit goes wrong and we have a difference of opinion over some bullshit like, fuck, I don't know, politics or whatever. Who gives a shit? And that doesn't go through. And I'm sitting there on my list with, I'm going to have this badass jacket. That doesn't mean I don't run into a fashion icon who's a world-renowned name the following month, who's like, I love your style, you need a jacket. Just because you banked on having a successful artist create you a fantastic piece of artwork doesn't mean that the fantastic piece of artwork created by a successful artist will be the artist you originally picked. It doesn't mean you won't get your goal. It just means it doesn't mean it'll look like you thought it did, because your conception of understanding of who you would be when you had it wasn't in alignment.
Right.
So the you in 2 years you write down your goals for might have a business partner who does deals and negotiations every day, but it might not be your friend Bob that you started out with doing deals negotiations because Bob could only conceptualize in thousands of dollars. But 2 years down the track, your new business partner, he's like, let's do millions, let's do tens of millions, and let's do that because you've evolved. So just because your goals and dreams aren't like, this is why it's really important to be clever when you're writing your goals and dreams. You've got to write them into the future condition you want to be in and let the journey take care of itself. You've just got to lean in.
Could you give
There's
an
lots of times
example?
I could have got off. You know what I'm saying?
Not quite, not quite. I understand the writing up the goal, but what do you mean by future states?
So let's say, for example, I put down on a piece of paper, I'm going to have a business with Bob. Now, in my mind, I have an understanding of what those words mean. The universe can interpret that in many different ways. So when I set out at the beginning of my hero's journey, somewhere near the beginning, to change things and change life and the rest of it, because I'm sick of being an employee and my goal is to have a business with Bob, because Bob is the guy who's motivated me to do it and start, and we've got a great idea for a food truck or whatever the fuck. And I write down my goals. In 3 years, I want to run a successful business with Bob. That doesn't mean in 3 years you'll be doing a food truck like you originally agreed.
Mm-hmm.
That's got nothing to do with it being a successful business or not. That doesn't mean it'll be that Bob.
Mm-hmm.
It could literally be any other person on this planet named Bob, or anything else, right? You could be running a successful business with Bob because, fuck knows, it could be a bobbing for apples. It's still Bob. Like, the future state you're going to be in could realize your goals in a way that you can't perceive. So when you write your goals down, you want to be putting it in a way that it's like that game where they say, you know, make a wish and the other person grants you the wish in the worst way possible. That's the game, right? So you
Yeah,
wish
yeah.
for $1 million and they say you have
Well,
$1 million.
isn't this very much like the surrender experiment meme, where
Yes,
you have a goal, and yes, your goal is what you want, and you will achieve it, but not in the way that you think you will. And it's
correct.
often very sneakily the universe is preparing you either to overcome whatever obstacle that is in your path, or the obstacle in and of itself becomes the path, and the inner resistance you have to worship, because that inner resistance simply exists because you're trying to paint an ideal picture that is not congruent with what the universe wants for you.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in that, if I look back, very simple, my martial arts background, when I started, I was maybe 11 years old,
Yep.
maybe. And I remember I wanted to be the baddest fighter there. I did not realize how difficult that journey would be. I did not realize how difficult that journey would be. I did not realize what it would take of me to become one of the best fighters of that gym. I did not realize how much I had to bleed and prove myself because I wasn't growing fast enough.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Do tell.
Did you set a time on this goal, or was it just a general? I want to be the best here.
A general, I wanted to be the best here. And there's something
Okay.
about that where I had to figure this out for myself, because it was always my dream to be a great fighter.
So if you look at, do you have a rough idea of how the people are in life who you would consider there, that you are measuring the best of yourself against them? You get where I'm going with this?
I see what you're going with this. It is very similar to the people that I want to be. Are they truly living the life that they say they are?
Right. So if you had this conceptualization when you were young that you wanted to be the best fighter there, Now, I would challenge you to say that anyone from that gym has the training internally in mindset and communication that sets them above others in every interaction with other humans that you do.
Mhm.
Because the best, right? You might be the best communicator of all the fighters. You might be the best defender of all the fighters. You might be the best takedown specialist of all the fighters.
Mhm.
You're still the best fighter. It's just in what area. Now,
I see. I see.
I could think of many qualities where you're probably the best compared to anyone from that. Just because I know through the AZD process, through the IMC Brotherhood, through the Beast process, all this kind of stuff, the levels of things that you've done that internal work on that most people never do.
It's funny you should say that. See, looking at my extensive taekwondo background,
Mm-hmm.
it was never physical. The physicality of my being that had to change. Because that,
Mm-hmm.
of course, improves. Of course, you put in the work. You show up, of course. But what got in the way, funny enough, was my mind and my communication. Very funnily enough, to give an example, when I just started, I was very naive
Yep.
about what a fight truly entailed. And until
Yep.
I made the switch from taekwondo to boxing, grappling, that's when I started to understand, oh, these are the mistakes I've been making in street fights. I've been putting myself in great danger, not realizing it. And I
Mm.
just got lucky. I thought it was good. No, I was lucky. I was lucky I wasn't in front of someone that knew what they were doing.
Yes. Yes.
And then was I thought I was humble in fighting, and then I really became humble in fighting because my ass was being roasted by women one hair smaller than me, and I couldn't do shit. Yeah, this is awful. But in that, I started to realize there's so much more I can learn. And it's like the hero thinking, okay, I've reached what I've reached, and then moving from village to village, realizing I ain't that hot. I thought
There's
I
still
knew.
further levels I have to ascend before I'm really as good as I need to be.
Exactly. It's like look at Avatar, from the Airbender series. That's the Airbender series. It doesn't matter if you're the Avatar if you can't solve the fucking problem. And where the story of Aang was relatively simple compared to Korra, they follow the same line. It is
Mm.
not what I think it is. It's never what I think it is. It is through the challenges I start to slowly but certainly understand what I have to do. And it's the same in business, it's the same in martial arts, it's the same in whatever area. If I set out, let's say, to help you in your business, I am definitely biased towards a certain taste of symptoms, let's say, because I've seen this before. But I have to follow the procedures in order to truly test whether what I'm seeing is truly the truth or simply symptoms of a truer cause. You understand what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And thereby challenging this the mental meme that we've created. Oh, is this system, is that system, is that person that caused this? Because it rarely is that so. It's usually the
It's easy to
combination
blame.
of
Yeah, it's easy to blame something on the top than going deeper to find the real cause. I get you.
and this is very similar to, and this is one of the scenes that I really enjoyed of, during Belfort the Way of the Wolf. I'm getting very into sales these last few months, where they decided to go from penny stocks or selling
To blue
penny
chip.
stocks to high ticket people,
Yes.
the people with the real money.
Yes. 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 I
And
know
of
how
course,
that went down.
exactly right. And I believe Jordan Belfort himself and some other uh, cat were just doing well, but the rest of the team wasn't, and they were complaining. Now, a regular Joe would have just stopped then and there, but that's not Jordan Belfort.
Not at
He
all.
decided to look at what is there being said and what pattern can we see, also known as what's actually happening. And I
Mhm.
believe they noted down 15 or 50, I can't remember, and simply ask what's really being said. And then ultimately they managed to get three true questions out of it. And if we, or three true causes out of it.
Mhm.
Your client is here, your client is B, your client is C. And if we rephrase that, what do we get? Then actually what's happening is we don't trust you. That means we, as the seller, need to get them on our team. And thus the straight line system was born. If we can get them to say yes every time, we could always challenge them again by saying, "Oh, but I thought you agreed. What happened?" And then you get them back on track. Granted, I haven't completely read the book, but it's a very similar system. And
Well,
it's
it comes down to the base principles, because now this is something that a lot of people have said to me. What is your skill? What makes you so good? And it's been really hard for me to define. I literally did it for the first time yesterday, and I said it to someone, and they went, "Yeah, I can internalize base principles, and once I understand the concepts and I understand them, I don't need to practice. I don't need to do any of this shit. I can just
right,
express them through my beingness. Because once they're internalized, I just express them through my character, unless there's some conflicting information and they're fucking it up."
of course.
So straight away, as soon as you explained how Jordan's Belfort system works, I see the sales principles that I've been taught over the years behind it, because I've never deeply studied his material, just briefly passing, because there's just so much out there in the industry.
Yeah.
And it's that principle of when someone says yes, like you get them on, I see why it's called the straight line system. They go down the line of saying, is your name John? Yes. And have I got you at a good time, John? Oh, no, sweet. Next call. Oh, yes, I've got a minute. Brilliant. And I've got here that you live in California, correct, John? Yes. Oh, is it, it says here in the report it's sunny over there, correct? Yes. You just keep asking yes questions. And then eventually it's like, well, they don't want to say no. It's like that psychological principle, man, it's in so many things. It's how McDonald's sells you fucking an extra size on top of the burger and fry. Like, hey, would you like upsize of that? Yes.
I knew
Did
you
you
were
want
going to
this?
say that.
And McDonald's doesn't make any money on burgers. It makes all the money on fries and drinks. Burgers is the one that they lose. Like, now, hey, look, every McDonald's probably different financial structure, blah 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 blah. But the basic formula is that they lose money on burgers so they can make money selling you drinks and chips.
Ah. So if you want to be a bit anarchy, just buy burgers. Assuming
Well,
they lose money on burgers.
when you run the cost of the ingredients for the burger versus the time of the person to make it and the advertising required to get you in the door and if they only sell you a burger, it's a loss leader. But chips are like $4, and they cost them like 13 cents. That's where all the margin is. And when I say
Mm.
13 cents, I'm like including the time that the labor wage for someone to cook them, because they're so easy.
Mhm.
That's something I learned when I was in hospitality starting out, is that one of the chefs who was actually teaching the real shit, not just how to cook food, he was like, chips are what make a business work, because the kitchen makes so much money on chips. That's how it runs. That's where you cover your staff costs, not on your steak, because steak's so expensive as an ingredient to begin with. But potatoes, frozen, yeah, bro, cheap. And this is
Interesting. So in the margin is where you win.
always, always.
All
This is
right.
another. This is a fantastic philosophy in battle, known as, it's not about winning the battle, it's about winning the war. You can lose 7 battles in a row if it wins you the battle that wins the war. Doesn't matter. If you're going to war with, say, a neighboring kingdom, you can lose 8 battles in a row. If the ninth one you kill their king, you fucking won. So Someone
What
was
a
arguing
great
with me today.
philosophy.
This is really important that we focus on this. I'm like, no, I'd rather focus on removing the government. Worrying about the shit that they're doing today, yeah, it's bad, it's annoying, and someone will get in there and fight them. But I'm not going to put my time and effort into that when I can remove them. I can win the war instead of fighting a battle.
Right.
It is. I am realizing why people are starting to say you're going to have to be careful about how much you're speaking on this. You're going to get targeted. I probably am, and this is public, so fuck it. Like I said,
Well, it's funny you should say that because my spiritual coach and mentor, Frank White, says something very similar to what you're saying, not on the politic side, but very much on war and business are one and the same.
mm,
It's just that war is ancient, way more ancient than business. And if
true.
you follow the law of principle and law, ancient law, then it's always the higher rule that wins. And war dictates business in all aspects. Marketing is propaganda. War uses propaganda as a tool to lead the masses into a certain direction. It hasn't changed. It's just wearing another suit, let's say.
Well, it is. It is. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a suit of armor or a suit like you've got on the wall behind you. You're
Mhm.
going to war. And what people don't realize is that war doesn't necessarily mean negative. It just means that there's a battle and a confrontation
Mhm.
because we can engage in business, you and I, and that's like a war, right? But we can both win because we're engaging in business. Business is a subset of war, which doesn't involve stabbing the other person with a sword, hopefully. Otherwise, your business is going real wrong. But that's all under that philosophy and that principle. And honestly, I reckon we could really go deep on this. But time wise, this
Time wise,
is,
we have about 30 minutes.
I don't.
Oh,
We,
okay.
like, so realistically, did anyone have anything they wanted to add or contribute to this? Because I'm going to have to start wrapping it up. Like we've gone real deep, and we could probably carry on with the subject of war and business in the next podcast.
That sounds like a very fun topic. Thomas, if you're on, do you have any questions before we end the call?
Hey guys, thank you for sharing your knowledge.
No worries. No
You're welcome, brother.
questions?
Was
Fair
there
enough.
anything you wanted to add or ask?
No, nothing to add right now. I'm now busy working and just listening with my one ear. And I wish
Fair
you
enough.
a nice day.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. I wish you a
Legendary.
fantastic day as well and keep up the good work. Now, let's start with ending this call. This has been the Hero Podcast 64. My name is Ryan G from ADS Allied Data Strategy, the company that gets you results. And of course, Pete Kirkwood, the real Pete Kirkwood, the success maker, the kingmaker, the one who creates and challenges your character so that you can evolve into the best version of you. Should you want to reach us, feel free to like, subscribe, and check out our comment section. I wish you a fantastic life. May your life never be the same. Good night.